I'm Bob Salvatore. What happened was Del Rey asked me, we really want you to come and do a Star Wars book. And I was like, a Star Wars book? I mean, I love the movies. I wasn't up on the expanded universe. They talked to me about it, and I said, sure, I'll do it. Absolutely, as long as you give me help. You give me resources so I know I'm not, like, contradicting everything. And they said, oh, yeah, we're going to make sure of that. They told me about the new Jedi Order and what they wanted to do, and they gave me this kind of background on the Vong. And they said, you know, we want you to go from, in this A to Z story, we want you to go from A to B. And we really want you to get to use all the characters from the novels and the movies. And they introduced me to a bunch of the characters from the novels. And we need you to just do a Pyrrhic victory where they see the Vong and we've kind of introduced them. And they think everything's okay, but it's not. So I said yes, I signed the contract, got the check, and put it in the bank. And wrote the outline. And I sent the outline in, and I was on a phone call with Del Rey and Lucasfilm with, I think it was Lucy Wilson, it might have been Sue Rostoni, but one of the Lucasfilm people, and Shelley Shapiro from Del Rey. And Lucasfilm was like, this is exactly what we want to start. This is perfect. This is just what we want. But didn't anyone tell you? I said, what? And they said, you have to kill Chewbacca. And I said, screw you. And they said, no, we're doing it for the right reasons. This comes from on high. This is right from the man. And I'm like, no. And I talked to Mike, and he explained to me the process that had led to this, and I said, all right, I'll do it, but you have to let me do it the way I want to. You have to let me write that scene. I don't want to be told how he has to go. And I thought about Chewie a lot, and the way I would want to do it. You remember that old poster called The Last Great Act of Defiance?
Yes.
Where it's got this mouse standing there, and he's giving a finger to this gigantic eagle that's about to take him out. That was kind of my inspiration. I wanted Chewie standing there shaking that Wookiee fist at the moon. And I figured if you're going to take out a Wookiee, it's got to be a moon. It hurt like hell. It hurt like hell. Of course it did. How could it not? I grew up with Star Wars too. Then after the book came out, in addition to the death threats, I got emails from people going, aha, they never found the body. I'm like, it's a moon, dude. It ripped the atmosphere off the planet. Anything and everything on that planet is dead. Period. Nope, they never found the body. I refuse to believe it. So, and now he's right. Disney found him.
Yep.
Alive. It's pretty obvious that the people that watch these movies found friends. And, you know, they've carried them with them their whole lives. And, you know, that's real. That kind of stuff is real. And you know, we're at a Comic-Con, so you guys know better than anyone. When you find a friend in a book, that friend is real to you. And Chewie was just, you know, he was the one, he was the solid, even in the original movies, he was like the center that everyone else revolved around. You know, even though he didn't speak in the movies, his relationship with Han was pretty clear, right? So, you know, he was a friend. He was a friend to anyone who loves Star Wars. The thing that amazed me about it was, I remember seeing one long post on the Force.net where it was like, who is this punk to come into this galaxy and just decide to kill Chewbacca? I mean, what? And I'm sitting there thinking, do you really think the an author can walk in and do something like that? I mean, it just amazed me that, you know, there were people who thought that I just said, oh yeah, I'm going to write a Star Wars book and I think I'll kill Chewbacca.
Yeah, I mean...
and it was like, you don't get it, man. I got to tell you, over the years, for as many people who have been upset with me, there have been people who thank me. It's been even more than 50-50, I would say, in favor of thank you. You know, I was getting bored. I didn't think anyone was going to die, and he died. This is the other thing about the book, is that was probably the worst year of my life. Personal level, I was basically, my brother was dying of cancer. I had to cancel the tour for Vector Prime. I won't take the blame for the decision to kill Chewie. I will take all the blame for how it was done, or the praise. If I hated Star Wars, I never would have written the book in the first place. I love Star Wars, so if I hated Star Wars, I wouldn't have killed anyone. Somebody else would have killed Chewie. That was how it started for me. That's how I got into the Star Wars novels. I remember when I got the phone call a year later saying, you know, we're sending the short list of authors to George for the novelization of Attack of the Clones. Can we put you on the list? And I said, no. I said, no, I just don't want to go back to that. I don't want to go back there. And then Terry Brooks actually called me up and he said, are you nuts? And I'm glad he changed my mind. So I said, yeah, okay, you can put my name on the list. And George said, come on up. I got to meet George, and I got to talk to him for hours and hours and hours and get immersed more in Star Wars than I ever thought I would.
I got really surprised in that book, though, because I added all the things about, Shmi and the stuff on Tatooine. It was really, from the script, I had to be on the script. But I was able to add those parts.
Well, I wasn't given a lot of leeway because it was like with each one, George gave more leeway. Like he gave Terry Brooks almost no leeway. I said, well, can I tell the story of Shmi? And they said, yeah. So I was able to do that. I was given a little more leeway. And then they just let Matt Stover run crazy in the third book, which is a pretty awesome book, by the way. It was very different because when you're writing a novelization, you're more like the mechanic on the race car than the driver. Because George is the driver.
A surreal moment in my life. I was at Star Wars Celebration 2 in Indianapolis, signing Vector Prime, and it's swarms of people in this convention hall, right?
Right.
And I was like right in the middle of the hall. I wasn't in one of the side rooms. So there's like thousands of people all around, walking around in the outfits. The 501st was there with their stormtroopers and everything. And all of a sudden I hear this noise and I look up and the crowd is parting and there's this 7'6" giant walking toward me.
Oh no.
It was Peter Mayhew.
Yeah.
And he came around the table and he like dropped his hands on my shoulder and he's kind of choking me. And he goes, we got to talk. And then later we talked. He wanted me to sign one of the books for his kid, He's just, I miss him. I only saw him at conventions, and I feel like I lost one of my best friends when he passed, because he's one of the most gracious human beings I've ever met in my life.